Good evening, neighbors. Thanks for coming to the May 2024 NPA meeting for Ward 5. I'm just going to start us off with the introductory part of we have a couple of slides where we just have our sort of logo and something about what we're going to do here tonight and what we usually try to represent. So this is our logo you might see on the signs around town. I thought we did a pretty good job. I didn't do it this time, so I can say that we did a pretty good job putting those signs out.
Yeah,
Thank you, Kathy.
the trick is, can I find them where I left them?
Everywhere I walk.
If you see an NPA sign, feel free to pick it up.
Yeah. Have to make more. All right, great. So these are our guiding principles that we follow. It's sort of in planning this meeting and holding the meeting and doing the other community events that we have. We try to provide a safe space, usually here at the DPW, to welcome anybody who would like to visit us here. To try to make it accessible, the building itself, and just kind of inviting everyone to join us, all community members from all walks. And we would like to be respectful of all those members that join us by respecting all their cultural, economic, other differences that they may have, and value their perspectives, all of your perspectives. Thank you for coming. And this is our attempt to be relevant and creative and fun, and to feed the masses tonight. I want to say a little bit about the food. As a different food vendor tonight. I don't know what, maybe I could do that next. And I'll just finally, for our guiding principles, we don't endorse any political candidates, although the steering committee has produced a number of them. So, we don't come out and endorse anyone specifically. So this new steering committee as of May 1st. We had the election last month, and they're in alphabetical order again. So they're not in the order we just joined, but I'm Joe Derry, and maybe I'll have people most of us are here. Just introduce yourself, wave so we know what you look like.
Kathy Bowling.
Wayne Greenberg.
Maria was here somewhere.
Jason Van Drysch.
Maria Mercurio.
Jack Tina. And we're missing one steering committee member who is traveling.
He's not in the US, so he'll be back soon, I think. So our other information, contact information, we have a website that's a little easy to find. It's npa5.org. Usually just has the agenda and the next meeting date. Sometimes we put if there's like a posting for the meeting, we'll put the hard copy of that, or the soft copy of that in there, so you can spin through it whenever you want. And then we have the link on the Burlington, Vermont website. So burlingtonvt.gov/NPA5 is a short link to the CEDO spot. I don't know if you visited that lately, but then you go into the civic, what is it called? Civic portal or something. That's where you'll actually find you might have to go and do another search to find the agenda if you're looking for it there. But that's the legally mandated method of getting to it. Our NPA liaison now for many months is Fosca. Thanks for joining us again tonight, Fosca. And as usual, we have Charlie Giannoni here running the cameras behind the camera. So appreciate you. Always here first, so yes, much appreciated. Oops. So finally, I'll just say these quick things. There's a few people on Zoom. If you want to say something during public forum or whenever there's sort of question and answers, we're going to have kind of a community discussion later, so sort of open. You can use the raise hand button if you're not yet put into the sort of presenter mode. And if you are in the presenter mode, you can also turn on your mic whenever you want, technically. Try to leave yourself muted if you don't want to embarrass yourself. And then you can start the video if you feel like you want to do that. So that's Zoom, old familiar. And here's our agenda for tonight. So you may have looked at the printed copy earlier. We didn't have to pull one item. So we're shifted up a little bit for our sort of neighborhood doing assembly. That will be right after the public forum, which starts right now. So Is there,
Before we do public forum, I want to make a mention of who made the food.
yeah, sorry. I was
We
gonna
had
do that.
a crew of wonderful Somali moms make all this food for us tonight. Zainab in South Meadows and Hawa in Salmon Run. Maria and I had a really fun time driving around town picking up food. Fareed is out of town and delegated his monthly responsibility to other very qualified chefs. So we could just give them a little round of applause.
Thank you, Lena. Lynn.
Thanks for taking care of that at the last minute or last days. Okay, so we're ready to go into the public forum. We just have these kind of ground rules to help kind of make this process easier for everybody. Just identify who you are, first name, last name. Whether if you're not a Ward 5 resident, you can say where you're from, and if you like, your street or whatever you like to share. And if you're speaking on behalf of some kind of organization, just let us know so we can, just make a note of that in the minutes and, any contact information or whatever you'd like to provide for people to reach out to you later, include that as well. This usually doesn't come into play, but we usually ask for, the comments to be limited to a few minutes. So, we just write down 4 minutes and we'll try to give you a reminder after 3 minutes that, just to respect the overall time. So that's it. If anybody wanted to join in now, just raise your hand.
This is for public announcements, okay?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, I came in a little late, so I wasn't that sure. I'm gonna get her.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the deployable one over here.
I can come here.
Here, this one is available.
Hey, Carolyn.
You can take this one if you like, Carolyn. It's not.
Ordered for posterity.
Thanks, everyone, so much. You never knew you could be so popular for a microphone, but anyway, I'm Carolyn Bates and I've put out 2 out of 3 street mural books on Burlington. And one of the murals, the one we all call the Buddha, which was done by Ron Hernandez, I think 25 years ago, maybe. Anyway, it got hit with graffiti and Sarah Rosedale and I cleaned it up a couple of years ago. And I just talked with Ron today and he is going to repaint the entire building. Hopefully next week. I'll know more later. And what I've been doing is trying to raise some money so he can pay for his lift at $250 a day. And I don't know what his gold paint is, but anyway, if anyone ever wants to contribute to him, I can tell you how to do that. But he'll be here.
I've always wondered, is it slightly off center on purpose? Do you know?
Is it offset?
A little bit.
It's the head that's
Yeah,
off
exactly.
Oh, that's because someone stuck that thing up there. That's not part of his mural.
Okay.
You know what that is? Those are reflective lights so people can see the building so they don't hit it. Anyway, Ron Hernandez office or studio is in the old Department of Public Works where Champlain Metals is and where the resource people are just at the end of that building. And I'll try to keep you all in touch or keep in touch with someone here that can then let you all know. But he's going to try to do it next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe. And we're hoping that people will help. And so will be ED. Is that anyone? Oh, do you know the Buddha? Do you know Callahan Park? Callahan Park.
Over here, Carolyn.
Oh, am I going the wrong direction? I don't know whether they did move it, I'm sure. Just for me. Anyway, you go down right by the park. That's Locust, bottom of Locust Street. And right across the street is sort of this one,
Yeah.
And it's got a Buddha on it and someone painted across the bottom and we did take that off and he's totally wanting to put on the anti-graffiti paint after he does all of it. And I have a feeling that if you go by and see him painting that you might be able to borrow a paintbrush and put a little gold paint on, especially if you help pay for it. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, Andy.
Yeah.
That mic back. Thank you.
My name's Andy Simon. I live just up from the Buddha on Locust Street. I want to talk just really briefly about a community safety issue that has not gotten talked about enough. And I would like to propose it as a topic of future discussion, and maybe, who knows, since we're doing assembly now, doing something about it. And that is dangerous driving. I have talked to DPW, I have talked to the police department, I have talked to the planning committee, the planning commission, and I've, shaken my fist at people driving by too fast and yelling at them, 25 miles an hour on Locust Street. And I've decided that I want to share this problem and not just sort of, hold on to it as a grumpy old man. I want to do something about it. I think it's a problem of an erosion of community values. Besides just being a community safety issue, it's kind of an indication for me of people not feeling part of a community. If they think they can drive down the street going too fast, that's trucks, cars, motorcycles, buses, or running red lights, which I was over on, the old Shy Guy intersection at Lange Brothers, for those of you who are old, that old, the other morning, and my light turned green. And fortunately, I took a breath and waited for a second, and somebody just zoomed right through it. It's commuting time, so, we're in a hurry. And the other thing is distracted driving. I can't tell you, especially as a cyclist and a pedestrian, how many times I see people looking down, sometimes looking up too, but often just looking down and motoring down the street. So I don't have accident or crash statistics. Maybe somebody else does, but it's accidents and crashes waiting to happen, and besides the ones that have happened already. And I'd like us to take it on in some form or another. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. My name's Kelly. I live on Home Ave, and I just want to build on what Andy said. I think you have a really good point about part of it being from people not feeling like they're part of the community they're driving through. And then I think, and that's something that we can do something about, potentially. And then I think there's also larger city planning issues. We went to a very small, very poorly advertised meeting about the intersection at Home and Shelburne, which was advertised with 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper at that intersection. And like they're doing this whole planning process, and it's only for short-term interventions only at that specific intersection, when really like anything that will make a difference to the safety of that intersection is really like, kind of a broader, like, how are people approaching it through the other lights? How is the congestion happening there in the first place? And I think that is a failure of some of the larger scale planning processes in our city. I'm new here to this meeting and to the neighborhood meeting. I don't know how we interact with that, but it would be great if we could encourage it to do more holistic planning processes.
Thank you.
Is this one here? Oh, you do have one. I'm Jason Van Drysch. I live on Caroline Street. I have a few opinions about this topic, having worked for almost a decade for Local Motion, which is all about this sort of thing. Three thoughts, three specific things. One is our almost without exception, our traffic calming projects are not nearly aggressive enough. They are way too deferential to cars and to traffic, and they lean in the direction of not inconveniencing drivers, even though the cost of that is dramatically lower pedestrian safety. One perfect example is the intersections on Locust Street with Caroline and Charlotte were rebuilt a few years ago. They bumped the curbs out, which is great. They were supposed to turn those intersections into speed tables, meaning if you go over them at more than 15 miles an hour, you leave your muffler behind because it goes kagunk and kagunk on either side. The design was way too tepid, way too cautious. And as a result, you don't even notice when you go over it. It's supposed to be a speed table, but it isn't. The ones on Birchcliff are better that were put in like a year ago, still not quite aggressive enough. You really shouldn't be able to go over those in anything but a Humvee at anything more than about 15 miles an hour. So that's one thing, is we need more assertive designs for those kinds of things. They're too deferential to cars. Second thing is there's a piece of legislation that was introduced this year and that I believe didn't go anywhere. We have a state representative, so maybe we can get some details about automated tickets for speeding and going through red lights, specifically at high crash locations. And the intent of the bill was to enable municipalities to set up cameras that would read your license plate and automatically issue a ticket in specific locations under specific circumstances. Basically from the premise that there's nowhere near enough police to be able to issue enough tickets to actually change behavior. Police are stretched way too thin and they got bigger fish to fry at this point. And that's why the data show that traffic citations are way down from 5-10 years ago. And people know it. And that's why people are flying through red lights and driving really fast, because there's a general sense that your risk of getting a ticket has plummeted. So that's one thing that would change things significantly. If you knew that if you drove through X intersection at more than 10 miles over the speed limit, a ticket would show up in the mail 3 days later, you can bet people would slow down. If you knew that if you blasted through a red light, it was red as you went under it, that you get a ticket 3 days later, people would quit doing it. And that's another tangible, specific solution, this time at the state level, that would make a big difference. The third thing, and this gets very much to what you were saying, is that the planning process for the kinds of things that you're talking about here in the city is way too fragmented. It's a separate planning process often for every single little intervention that's going to change anything. And A, that's, I think, a huge waste of city resources. And B, for anything even remotely controversial, it tilts the playing field in favor of opponents, because every project's opponents are very localized. No, I don't want that change on my street. Whereas the supporters are more generalized. Yes, I want to be able to walk safely in my city. And people just get tired and worn out going to meeting after meeting after meeting saying, yes, please do this. But the people who are against one particular thing, sure enough, will show up for that. So it's structurally biased in favor of the opposition. And we have to change that. And I think the way to change it is to package projects on a full year basis. And it takes more foresight and planning. But like, here are all the improvements that we're going to do this year in the South End, all the improvements in the downtown area, have one big meeting of like everything that's going to be tackled in a year. And for that, I think a lot more people would turn out, because if oh, okay, I go to this one meeting and I get to have a voice on a whole bunch of things for the entire year, great, I can do that. That hasn't happened yet. My hope is that with a new administration, we'll start to see opportunities for change that will make more community-centric and more progress-oriented as opposed to opposition-oriented planning happen.
Thanks. Oh, I love this. Well said.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Andy said. I actually called the traffic department a few months ago because they put the speed control radar up at the top of the hill, and I tried to engage them on the fact that it was useless there because people were just coming out of the rotary and they weren't going over 12 miles an hour. And I was told that the reason it's there is because they can only put those radar control things on speed signs, on, speed limit signs. And there's no more speed limit sign on Locust Street. So,
that's such a bullshit cop.
So if you can get them to put a sign on, I asked them to actually take it out, and they said, no, they just rotate it through different neighborhoods. And once we lose it, we're not going to get it back for a few years. So maybe an effort to put a sign in it would help. I don't know. Halfway down the street.
Or a, 5 a.m. on Sunday project to dig up that sign and move it 100 feet.
And we never saw it anywhere else.
No.
I have another topic, but I don't want to interrupt this discussion. So go ahead. Anybody else?
I think I am, Jack.
So just not to continue the conversation, but it sounds like there's a lot of people passionate about this. And I wanted to let you know that on Monday, another group that I'm involved with called Vermonters for People-Oriented Places, which kind of does a lot of active transportation, public transit, housing advocacy, kind of connecting all of these issues about what makes a safe and affordable city. We're having a monthly meeting at 19 Church Street at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, May 20th. I also just happened to have a zine that we made in my pocket. I can pass this around. Our website's on the back. And separately, I just also wanted to make sure I can pass this around. Yeah, you don't have to give it back to me. And there's a website link. The second thing was just to make sure that everyone knows that Plex in arts, a contemporary and experimental arts festival is happening on Saturday, May 25th, I believe. It's the Saturday, if that's the 26th or the 25th, I don't remember.
The
25th. Okay, so it's Saturday the 25th in the Old North End, kind of on Archibald, where Archibald meets North Winooski. It's you won't be able to miss it. It'll be that evening. There's tickets on a sliding scale available. This is the second year. It was really cool last year. A lot of local artists, contemporary and experimental art, performance art, visual art, musicians. It's going to be bigger and cooler this year. So I encourage you all to come if you want to see and engage with kind of the emerging contemporary arts artists in Burlington. So
What time did you say from when to when?
I think it's 5:30, maybe 5.
5 to
5,
12:30.
yeah, 5 to 12:30, 5 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. So it's an evening, it's a nighttime. It'll go as late as you want it to go. So it'll be at Junk Teaks and Rat's Mission and Despacito. So that whole area, they're shutting down part of Archibald too. So it'll be like a festival kind of that. You won't be able to miss it if you're walking through. So I encourage you all to check that out.
Jack, I think we heard Plex, but the first organization that you mentioned, I don't think we all heard the
First one was
name of it. The one
Vermont-
the zine is for
Vermonters for People-Oriented Places.
people oriented. Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's about transportation and housing and how they connect. And if you come to that meeting, I'm sure we'll be talking about all of this stuff. So
So about the Plex?
Yep.
So last year, are you aware that the NPAs?
yes,
Included a donation to that?
yes, I think the Ward 2 and 3 MPAs. Yes. Yep. So it didn't instigate from the NPAs, but it was supported by the NPAs. I don't know if that's the same this year, but it got its fledgling start through NPA grants. So that is a fun extra point. Anyway,
Caroline's been waiting patiently.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I'm giving, okay. I just another thing that since you're all talking about.
Hang on.
Oh, yeah.
Folks, the folks on Zoom want to hear you too.
There you are. Yeah. Since you're all been talking about transportation, how many of you like the traffic rotary around the corner on Locust Street? Do you think it works well? Now, wouldn't you like that where they're trying to put the Pine Street into a dead end? Do you all know about that? Part of that little parkway thing that we have been working on for so long. I don't know who's in charge of that anymore, but I think we all, as a group from Ward 5, ought to go down and absolutely demand to our new mayor that that does not become a dead end, that you cannot even walk across, that it becomes a traffic rotary, just like we have here. It's a lot cheaper and safer. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I just have two quick things. One is Jason mentioned in passing, people moving the sign on their own, but I do wonder if there's homegrown solutions to several of these things, like those huge planter boxes with signs saying, please drive slowly and carefully in our community, speed limit, whatever, like that kind of are set out into the road, or homegrown speed bumps, or moving the signs. The other thing though that just occurred to me that's not totally related to that, and I just wonder if others of you are having this issue. They leave the Amtrak train running all night. And that noise really grates on me. And Eric went to check with them one time in the middle of winter, and he was told, I think I'm getting this right, that this engine can't freeze, so they have to have it either on or have heat on it somehow. And there is an electrical device, but they're not comfortable with plugging it in. Or I don't remember what. So they're going to leave it running all night. So they leave that Amtrak train running all night. So number one, pollution, but number two, do other people hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Like loud?
Noise pollution.
It's super annoying. So I'm just bringing it up. I don't know what to do about it, but like it really almost makes me want to not live here to have that. We used to have like, we could hear peace. So anyway.
I like the train. It's there all night.
Yeah, I know who she is. Yeah.
Just a quick thing that I just want to say the word that you all are looking for like homegrown, the word is tactical urbanism. If you want to do your own Googling when you're, so just to let you know what that term is.
Nice.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you.
My name is Bob Collins. I live at Decker Towers. And for those of you that might not be aware, there's a light, the flashing light when we cross over to Carey's Quick Stop. And it used to be a traffic light. It used to be a green, yellow, red, and it was very effective at catching traffic's attention and having them slow down and yield to pedestrians. Right now, it's very dangerous. I begged them when they put that in to put the stop sign back and take the flashing lights away because the flashing lights are inadequate. You know, a lot of drivers that whiz right through there, and you better stop and wait because if you count on the flashing lights, it might be your last crossing. Yeah. So, and I begged the city, and they just, oh no, we've done studies, and they just, you know, but I mean, if you ask anybody that lives at Decker Towers, I think they'll tell you that it was a lot safer to have that traffic light. Anyway, sometimes I have to just get enough people to lobby the city, I guess. I don't know. Thanks.
Thank you. Later.
Gonna tack on to the, great topic. It's really nice to see Public Forum run over its stated time. That's what it's for, actually. And just want to say it's really such a beautiful thing to have you all in this room at the NPA sharing all of these concerns that we have in common. This is the first step. Unfortunately, NPAs don't have much power. There's a whole other conversation to be had about taking power back and giving it to the NPAs instead of letting the city make all those decisions. So if you want to talk about that, I want to talk about that. Come and find me after the meeting. But really, our city councilors and our planning department and our mayor work for us. So all of us on the steering committee really can't do anything. We can we could pass an NPA resolution saying that we need a study for safer streets in the South End. There's work that we can pursue as the NPA, but I just want to encourage everyone to really hold our electeds and paid officials to task because they work for us and this is our city and we are the ones paying the taxes that pave the roads and set up the streetlights or don't. And we have just as much a right as anyone else to say this street should be this way and not this other way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You're next.
Hi, everybody. My name is David Foss. I also live at Decker Towers. One of my big concerns, and I see it kind of runs the gamut on St. Paul Street between all the irregular corners and people not stopping between Decker Towers and Carey's Quick Stop, going all the way to the 4 corners we're talked by the old flower market and old Launch Brothers. People think once they get stuck, I see people 5 or 6, 7, 8 cars in a row below those stop signs on going down St. Paul, going past Maple, going past King. And there's construction always through there. And I've seen a number of folks almost get run over. And then when they started the construction down St. Paul Street, headed toward Main Street, they had talked about putting an island or something at across from Carrie's in that spot, bus stop that would slow people down. And they have not done it. I've seen people get hit. I've seen folks like Bob come really close to getting hit. So I think we need to put pressure. I don't know. We need to change St. Paul Street again. I don't know how, but it's a dangerous place right now.
Thank you.
I just have one follow-up question. Like, you know, what's the best way to put pressure on the city government? How, like, what's the best mechanism for us to do that? Is it like coming together as a neighborhood group with something, or is it like you probably know better than we do?
Let's see if I can answer this question. If anybody else has a great answer, please chime in. When we get to it, we're going to have a really fun part of our agenda today in which we're going to talk about coming up with a proposal as a community for a community center. That's going to allow us to show up to existing input processes with a concrete proposal instead of just saying, it would be nice if we had this thing. And Jack can speak to this as well. It's a lot harder to ignore us if we show up and say, it's not just that we would like this thing, here's something specific and all of us want it. So I would say let's have another NPA discussion. Maybe it's next month. Maybe it's at a summer gathering in which we identify some of the safe streets improvements we want to see. We can pass resolutions as an NPA that goes to our city council. You can try to get time with your city councilors. I wish you luck. And you can also write to the mayor. And then I would say, Jack, what do you think? There are a lot of city staff whose job it is and who are paid a lot better than city councilors to pay attention to this kind of thing. I have felt very frustrated when trying to talk to Corey, who's the project manager for the Rail Yard Enterprise project, and saying, like, it's great that you put in a bike lane, it then dead ends in the middle of a busy street. Like, what's up with this holistic planning bullshit that you're talking about? So I wish that there was an easy way, but in truth, these systems are not actually designed to receive our feedback, which is part of why they're so bad. And I think this is a group task. It's not that any one person has a silver bullet to get our voices heard in City Hall or in all of the offices in this building and elsewhere in the city where people are supposed to be working for us. I think that we can all devote ourselves to intervening, whether that's going to meetings, which I certainly don't want to do any more of. Don't blame me if you don't want to either, but write to people. Let's keep getting together and talking about what we can do. The whole rest of our meeting is actually devoted to elevating community projects beyond discussion to a place where we're actually taking action, asking for what we want and need in our community, and expecting to see change. So it's really heartening to see this discussion. And I wish I could say, you just go to this place and you tell them, and then they listen to you. And that is a city that I think is worth fighting for. So let's all commit ourselves to making that city a reality.
You're good.
My name is Ingrid Derry, and I am.
So you can hear here too, not just in the mic. Just leave it there.
What? Okay.
Okay.
Just talk loud, Ingrid.
Talk loud.
Okay. And I am his daughter. That's all.
That's not what you wanted to say.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
What am I supposed to say?
Thought you wanted to talk about people driving too fast, but I know you know about that. Okay, Andrew.
In addition to what Lena said and sort of answering your question, I know the people at Decker Towers have spent decades trying to go to the place that listens to them and then affect change. We found out that there's quite a story and quite an agreeable focus of concerns at Decker, enough to put it on the front page of 7 Days a handful of times and get the whole city's attention. So if the story becomes big enough and enough people outside of this room even agree with what you're saying, then you can gather and focus with not a year or two's worth of effort, but if you're able to focus it and put it in the media of some kind, and it snowballs from there. So just a thought.
Thanks.
I don't think this is an official name, unlike tactical urbanism, but what happened at Decker is what you might think of as strategic embarrassment.
That's true.
Which can be an incredibly effective tactic to publicly, when all else has failed, publicly making leaders look bad for their inaction is effective. There was on a much smaller scale, a project that did that I was involved in some years ago, where a group of neighbors had been asking the city for years to put in a crosswalk at the intersection of Locust Street and Locust Terrace. And we kept being told that it couldn't be done because there was no pedestrian receiving facility in the park, meaning a paved sidewalk or what have you. And we tried to make the argument that the entire frickin' park is a pedestrian receiving facility, but got nowhere. So we went out very early on a Sunday morning, all dressed up in reflective gear and painted a crosswalk, and then called 7 days. And they wrote a story about it. And sure enough, an actual official crosswalk got put in.
Oh, there you go. Did anybody go to jail?
No.
All right.
No, in fact, the very first car that showed up when we started doing this, we were just getting it laid out. I kid you not, was a police car. And he pulled up and said, "What are you doing?" And in our best, we are supposed to be here voices, we said, "Painting a crosswalk." And he said, "Okay," and left.
They're understaffed.
He probably lives in that area.
I was gonna,
And
I just want to say I nominate Jason to move the speed sign.
I also,
Please.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think that the shortest answer that I could give to your question is that the way that you make things change is what the rest of this meeting is going to be. And so I think we should get into it, because I think there's a lot of cool conversations to have about how do we all get together and do stuff. So
Okay, we had our quick readout on the, oops. Did you want to say something? Yeah, Charlie.
About this thing about how to get things done. So what if you did this? What if during the year at all your NPA meetings, you collected all the pet peeves that you developed during the year? Because every town meeting day, you've got city councilors up they're either running for election for the first time or they're running for re-election. And they come here into this room, right, for this part of town, and you can zoom into all the other NPAs that have city councilors running for office. And if people simply collected their pet peeves during the year and insist on asking a direct question from a city councilor, what are you going to do about this? And then hold them accountable during the year, because that's when you've got them. You've got them in January and February. You've got their attention, especially when they're coming right into your own room. And now you have the power of Zoom, because you can go to all the NPA meetings from your living room, and you can really pigeonhole them and say, these are the things all year long that have been bothering us, and we want to see something done. Just an idea. Thank you.
All righty.
Yeah, how did you want to do that? Did you have some information from the?
Yeah, let me take it and run with it, and I'll make it really quick. So, as some of you know from folks who've been here before, who've seen the emails, we've launched something in the last couple of months that we're calling the Neighborhood Doing Assembly. And it's not a replacement for the Neighborhood Planning Assembly. It's really a complement. It's about identifying specific things where a group of people could move the needle on something that that's important to the South End, to Ward 5. We identified 3 specific areas of work. One of them is the topic of the main discussion tonight. That's the South End Community Center. So I won't even touch that because it's got its whole big chunk of the agenda. The other 2, I wanted to invite folks who are here who are involved in the other 2 groups, just to say a few words about what's been done so far, what you're working on, and what the general direction is. And those 2 groups are one that's focused on improvements to Callahan Park, and the other that's focused on organizing neighborhood gatherings of all sorts, block parties, parties in the park, dances, community suppers, you name it. So is there anyone from the Callahan Park group who is here tonight who would like to say a few words about what's been done? Andy.
I'm in the Callahan Park Improvement Society. with Greg Stefanski, with Ingrid Derry, and thank you, with Amelia Van Drysch, and with Daisy May. And I seem to be the prime representative of the group tonight. So we haven't done that much. We did get together. Greg and Daisy and I got together. Ingrid and Amelia were not available that day, and walked around the park. And it turned out that, in fact, Greg and Daisy didn't know the park very well. And I know the park quite well since I live across the street. So I was the tour guide of Callahan Park and showing people, our group, the different features of it. We did chat with Tara, who used to live in this neighborhood and who was one of the people running the snack bar at the Little League that was just cranking up for the evening. So it was a good tour. It was very informative, and we started to have some ideas, and we're hoping to get together one more time soon and with the whole group and talk some more. Thanks.
And for each of these groups, the only kind of marching orders that I gave to the group as the sort of impeller of this whole thing was figure out one specific thing that that's doable and that you can work together to make happen. Doesn't matter what it is. So these guys are in the process of sorting through the options and figuring that out. But that's really the North Star. Take one thing, make it happen, and then do something else after that. Who's involved in the community gatherings group and would like to report on that?
And people are welcome to join that.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to join that group.
Please. Okay, I will note that down.
No, the community organized.
David, right?
No, he's on the
Oh,
coming up.
okay, great. So David, community gatherings.
Yeah.
Okay,
Notes.
I can update.
please.
Basically that we don't really have an update because community gatherings, we came up with an idea at the last meeting, and the idea was that we were gonna do a walking. Oh, sorry. I'm Maria, by the way. Our idea is to do a walking garden tour. Most of us who were chatting last month live in the addition. So that was kind of where that was centered, but we can either have it be longer or have there be different branches of it. But the idea was to get together a group of neighbors who want to show off their gardens and walk together and then talk about and then share resources and ideas. Like, you know, this is how I did my compost bins. These are the trees that I'm planting. And so that was our task. We have not yet made moves on organizing that. I would actually, one of my tasks I decided for tonight is if there's anybody in this room who's interested in that, either they have a garden or they want to go on a walk, I would love to get a contact info sheet for that going tonight, because that will help me move on the next piece of logistics. And also community gatherings, we would love more members and we would love more ideas of what people want to do.
Good. I want to be on it.
Great.
And I will email everybody who signed in after this meeting. And if you would like to be involved in either of those groups, in the Callahan Park improvements or the community gatherings, or now the community center project, just email me back and I'll put you in touch with that set of folks. Great.
Wait, what about the big idea?
That's next. That has its
They have
own
a
big
whole-
chunk on the agenda. Memory. All right. So why don't we switch over to that?
Okay, great. Yeah.
Andrew?
Just, I can't be a part of these groups. I'm busy with something I can't really talk about, but I will say that the Flynn did an annual garden tour all over Chittenden County once a year that I catered and provided lunch for a couple hundred people. And those past events are well documented with the people involved and stuff, typically Shelburne, South End. But you might be able to find some ideas and structures and prompt some structures out of it, or contacts or whatever, if you just Googled it for a minute. Just a thought. Yeah.
We're gonna serve lunch. Now I'm interested.
Nope.
Nice. I don't, I can't block very well, but I can give you information.
Hey, Joe, would you spare me a piece of paper to send around for people who have interest and
Yeah, I'll just add the 2
Yeah.
or 3 groups. I don't need to rip it out. I'll just send the whole thing. All right, so
And all you have to do is put your name and what group. If you already signed in here, we got your email. So
right, yeah, that would be, if you sign that, that would be perfect. You can add it here if you didn't, because we will need your contact.
and next time we'll make it all together in one sheet.
So the next piece of the final item of the agenda tonight is from the Big Ideas group. And Elena and Jack are going to take us through sort of some of the initial planning for that and see if we can contribute to it as a group here. So yeah, take it away and I'll.
Cool. So I think how this is going to go is I'm going to give a brief presentation kind of outlining this situation. And then I think Lena's going to moderate kind of the discussion and engagement part. So is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And team big thing
Yes.
thus far is the 2 of us and Ruby and maybe Fareed and maybe some of you. So as you're listening, keep your ears open to see if you want to be involved in the next couple of months.
Yes, that's going to be a critical thing. So like at the end, we're going to want to come out of this tonight with a couple more people that want to get involved over the next month. We'll get into this, but yeah, keep your ears open for how you might want to get directly involved with this. But let's jump into it. So as Jason said, this is kind of coming out of what has been dubbed the neighborhood doing assembly. Next slide. So just kind of like as a background, as like a strong community with an active NPA, we kind of identified this thing that we wanted to do more. I think Jason led this initiative, right? And Lena. So this kind of came out. I'm new to the steering committee. This is my first meeting on the steering committee. But out of last year's steering committee, this was kind of one of the projects that slowly built up over time. So it started with collective brainstorming at our Callahan Park summer picnic last year. And the idea is really, right, like what do people want to see done in Ward 5? This continued with conversation and outreach over the winter. And recently over the spring, we kind of formed these teams that Jason just talked about and that we just outlined. And the critical thing to like understand is like the doing is happening now, right? Like the doing has begun. We've been kind of putting out a lot of feelers for ideas of what people wanted to see. We've been having casual conversations of things we'd like to see change in Ward 5. And now we kind of have tasks and we're doing stuff. And so I think next slide. The most interesting thing I think is that somehow the biggest topic at our last meeting, we sat down, we all kind of picked the projects that seemed interesting to us. And me, Lena, Ruby, and Fareed kind of sat down at the Big Idea project, which was this idea of a community center, which came up very frequently throughout the kind of idea gathering phase. This is something that a lot of people brought up. Interestingly enough, we almost immediately identified that we have an actual opportunity to kind of like make this happen in a tangible way, kind of soon. So for those of you, actually, no, I'll get into it in a minute. So the next slide. In other words, right, like, wouldn't it be great to meet somewhere other than this DPW conference room, right? It's like the new North End and the old North End and downtown each have at least a community center or a library, or some of them have both, or other types of like public space or for civic or community engagement. So the idea was like, how can we as a South End community start working towards having a space like that of our own, right? And so last NPA, when this got started, this was kind of the task that we on the team Big Ideas took on. Next slide. Right. So this leads to the next question. Is like, how do you actually, build a community center at all, really, as an idea, just coming from people in a room like this? And the opportunity, next slide, is that right across the street there, for those of you who aren't familiar, was just rezoned in this project last year as the South End Innovation District. And so next slide. So just to kind of give you a brief overview, essentially this whole empty parking lot right here is going to be a brand new mixed use housing, business and arts district that's going to, you can see on the map here, basically primarily replacing a bunch of existing surface parking lots. So like 1,000 units of housing. It's going to be the property owners of that right now are existing Ward 5 residents, Champlain College, and the city of Burlington. So there's a lot of interest groups that own this land that have engagement in our city and in our community specifically. And so like our goal here is to integrate ourselves into that process. So in a way, the way that like I'm thinking about this is that change in Burlington, change in the South End is necessary, and change is coming. And we kind of have the opportunity to be a great example of how a community can productively lead its own growth. So there's a lot of stuff happening here. None of it has happened yet. A lot of this stuff is still in the planning stages, and a lot of it is moving on or moving forward. And so essentially where we're at right now, and I think we can jump into the plan. And so basically the city right now through CEDO and the planning department are going to start doing a lot more focused public engagement around what's going on here. And so the thing to keep in mind is that what they're trying to do is this memorandum of understanding where this entire block is developed with all of the partners together and not just like piecemeal. And so again, one of those partners is the city, but all of the partners kind of have a reason to care about civic infrastructure in building a thriving neighborhood here. But since the city is involved, there is like a direct opportunity for public engagement through that. One of the things that we want to do that I think is different than pretty much not every process. I think some of the most successful processes and projects that have happened in the city's history are when it comes from the neighborhoods, from the residents themselves. So instead of just kind of like saying, hey guys, like there's going to be these meetings and you should go to them and say you want a community center or whatever it is that we want to do. We have the opportunity to be proactive instead of reactive here and come together and talk about all the specifics of what is it that we actually want in terms of civic infrastructure in the South End. You know, is this library branches? Is it meeting spaces? Is it public gatherings? Is it outdoor event halls? Like what are all of the things that we're dreaming of? Figure out how to turn that into some kind of tangible proposal and then bring that to the city. So instead of saying, oh, we kind of want these things, say like, this is exactly what we want. And we already engaged the entire community and we've thought about this and we worked out some of the details. We obviously can't do everything up front, but we can do a lot more than just show up to meetings and give suggestions. Right. And so this is kind of like the question that we're trying to answer now, which is how can we make sure that civic infrastructure is considered as a core component of this South End Innovation District redevelopment from the beginning? And so next slide. Right. And so this is kind of like the timeline of like where this project is. Essentially, what we're going to do tonight after I'm done talking is jump into basically brainstorming and dreaming and building a team, right? So over the course of June, the plan is to develop an actual concrete community-led proposal and start beginning development to different, or beginning outreach to development partners. So we've already met with the planning staff who kind of, we're first of all are on our team. They love this idea and they will be advocating for us from inside the city, but the whole project itself is not from the city, it's from us, right? So we're going to be leading this. Right now, it's the four of us who have raised our hands so far, and hopefully a few more people who will raise their hands in the coming month. But to spend the next month like really fleshing this out, working through some of the details, and then hopefully the goal would be to, at the next NPA in June, come back with a brief update of kind of like, hey, this is what we talked about. This is what we took from the brainstorming session that happens tonight. We worked through some of the details. We talked to some more people, some of the other developers, Champlain College, and kind of started feeling out, you know, where everybody is on this and say, here's kind of a package that we think we should kind of move forward with. And hopefully like, you know, I don't know if we have like an official process for like voting on things, but the idea would just really bring it to the NPA and say like, are there any kind of, you know, problems or are we good with this? And to kind of have like this vote of support behind this thing. So we have a really truly community-led proposal behind what we want. And so then for the rest of the summer of 2024, this summer, kind of bringing this proposal to the development partners and the city and looking for collaboration on and a commitment to kind of the things that are at the core of what our proposal is asking for. And so, you know, we kind of have like this like window of opportunity. If we wait too long, if we drag our feet and it's the fall, it's the winter and plans are getting laid out and it becomes harder and harder to get this in. But there's like this moment, there's this window of opportunity right now to really like figure out what we want and work together as a community to come up with a proposal. And again, I think what I'm really excited about here is that like most of the big changes again that happen in the city are kind of external, and then you get like brought into it and you get asked for like little details of like, well, what about this or what about this, and you pick one of the alternatives,
And then they ignore you.
and then they're like, well, we did the engineering, we decided we're not going to do that anyway. And so like keeping in mind that like, you know, we don't have a binding legal process here, but you know, how many people are in this room? 30, 40 people. You know, we hopefully can get even more. And then so once we, you know, having that many people behind something, it becomes harder to ignore when it's not just feedback notes in a outreach meeting, right? So that's kind of the goal, is to really test to see how far we can push this, and also stretch our muscles as an NPA, as a neighborhood doing assembly, of trying to put together something big and interesting that benefits the community. So that's the timeline. That's kind of the plan.
Jack, I have a question.
Yes.
So what is the window right now of opportunity? Because there's already been a lot of planning about this and what's going to happen. So for us to come in with a whole new segment of it, you know, what is that window?
So there's been a lot of zoning planning, right? And so that's more abstract. So last year, and before that, I think it started in 2021 or 2022, they were kind of laying out what the abstract idea of this district should be. And so that wrapped up last summer. And so since then, a lot of the MOU process has been largely laying out the terms of how the different landowners and the different partners are going to collaborate. And they're for sure like starting to mock up some things and lay out some plans. But in terms of like final buildings and like layouts, like that's not done yet. And so that's kind of that's the window that we have. This is already zoned for all of this stuff. We don't have to wait for it to be legal to build here. Like that's already happening. You know, the zoning process is done. The MOU, you know, I'm pretty sure it's not like a super legal thing. Like it can always fall apart if the parties don't agree, but that process has been going well so far. And the parties, you know, the city, Champlain College, and the Ride Your Bike LLC, which is the private developer, those three parties are working well together. So that MOU process seems to be leaning towards a successful thing or a successful outcome. And so basically that's the window of opportunity, is to influence the concrete development plans that are happening and starting to be underway before they get too far. We're coming in and being like, wait, can we have this? And it's like, well, I don't know where that fits. So no. So if that's like, hey, before you start, this is generally what we want. This is something that we want to see. There's room for that to be integrated into those plans as they materialize.
Jack, is it accurate to say, basically that we want the folks at the city to be saying to the other partners, hey, we're getting this really strong push from the community for A, B, C, D, and E. You're really going to have to incorporate that into the MOU if this is going to move forward. We can't move on this unless.
We have that much power.
I think beyond that, I don't think that the other parties are any less of good partners, right? So like, I think that the goal shouldn't be to assume that all of the non-city partners don't want to play ball. And I think that there's room to pitch this and to make this and create a proposal that's like a win-win for everybody, right? And so like, I don't think that it's worth like being antagonistic to everybody or like trying to like say like, oh, our goal is to convince the city, because then it's like we're going through the city. And I think this should be coming from us to all of the partners as equal partners. So that's just my perspective though. But
I just want to cut in because I know there's a lot of questions and a lot of like ways that we could talk about this for hours. And because we are all here in this room together, I want to make sure we have time to actually do the thinking about what this can be. If you're excited to figure out the best way to strategically deliver this to the city and all of the partners, you should join the team. if anybody has any burning questions before we go forward, I think we can take one or two. And cool, we have someone online. Great. If your question is a burning question, we want to hear it. But I do think we should move towards doing some work together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I can't tell if I'm.
Yes, we can hear you, Lucia.
Muted or whatever. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Lucia Gabriella here. I live down Pine and Lyman. So happy to be participating in this. And sorry, there's a real serious echo, so it's a little hard to talk. But I just wanted to thank you all for the presentation. I'm so excited to hear the plan moving forward of a community center. I know many people for many years longer than I have been talking about this with great interest. So thank you so much for putting a plan in action to move it forward. And oh, that's so much better. Thank you. And Jack, I love what you just said. I think you're absolutely right that partners are open to hearing ideas and interested in that engagement. So I really appreciate your perspective on that and look forward to being supportive in any way that I can be.
Awesome.
Thanks, Lucia. All right, burning questions only.
Hi, I'm Robin, and I live in Ward 5. And I just am having a little, I don't understand who's gonna own this property, and have they said, sure, because it looks like it could be a beautiful space, but like my cynical part says, like, what's in it for them? And, you know, we could say all these things that we want, but who's going to own this? And are they open to having us be there?
Yeah, so that's I think another one of those questions that I think we can talk about in the focus group. Like, so this is something that we talked about briefly in our.
Say the bit about the zoning incentive.
Yeah, I mean, so basically there are zoning tools and zoning incentives. And I was really involved from the zoning process here. But basically there are zoning incentives for private developers. So like the city could end up owning it, right? Like that could be one path. The city owns land, the city's a partner. Champlain College is also a partner and may be interested in having this building. But even if, for say, like a private developer were to own the final building, there's incentives in the zoning language that would incentivize them to build a structure like this that then gives them the benefit of allowing more rental units in like a private building. So like if they build a community center, they get more rental units. But this is one of those things where like, I don't think we need to talk about that level of detail tonight. That would be something, if anybody's interested in these kind of like nitty gritty questions, like please join us and work through some of those questions. But tonight, I think what we really want to do is jump into like the bigger picture, like the vision, and really get some feedback of like, what is it that we actually would want to see in a community center? What are we missing in the South End?
That to me just now helps.
Yep. Yeah.
It helps to hear like what is happening. So that helps a lot. Because it's hard to say, I want to do this if I don't have some belief system that is possible. So that helps. Thank you.
Burning question?
No, idea.
So we're getting there.
Let's just move into it.
Yes. Okay. Exciting ideas. Helen, help.
Well, I was wondering if are we gonna get into the groups like last time, like where we had those 3 groups?
Well, if we proceed, you'll find out.
Okay.
All right.
You can go to the next slide. So we have a couple of prompting questions, and just to speak to kind of some of the concerns and ideas and what ifs, and to connect back to our first conversation this evening, the way that we get things done, I think, is that first we have to come together and do the work to agree on what it is we want to see. I want to live in a city where we can knock on somebody's door in power and say, this is what we want, and then they'll give it to us. This is us practicing that. And we first have to come up with the idea, and then we have something to work with. So part of it is attitude and belief that this is right and should happen. So just want to give that word of encouragement. So our first question is, what would you want to do at the community center? And I'll give a couple of examples, but the way we're going to have this conversation is I don't have nearly enough pens for everyone in the room, but I'm going to circulate some pieces of scrap paper just so we can get some notes from everyone. We'll have a couple of questions. Please just make a few notes and I'll transcribe and we'll move forward from there. But I don't want to lose all of the ideas. So I'm going to circulate some of these and then we're going to turn to whoever's near us. If you're sitting next to someone you live with, turn the other direction. You can talk to them about this later. And feel free to do groups of 2 or 3. We're just going to have a couple of minutes to think about what you might do in a community center. Some quick ideas just to get the juices flowing if they aren't already. We could have NPA meetings. We could have teen events. We could have chair yoga or free legal services. We could have local art on the walls. We could have square dancing or speed dating or a tool library or a repair cafe. All right, the paper's coming around. Feel free to take some and pass it on. And I'll send some pens around too. And feel free to start talking with your neighbors. And for folks online, if you want to brainstorm amongst yourselves, unfortunately, we can't do a breakout room. So feel free to hail over someone else in your apartment and chat with them and then put your ideas in the Q&A and we'll take note of them. Thank you so much.
Here's our little piece of paper.
Something she did.
All right, folks, we're going to come back together. We've lost some people, which is understandable because this has been a very long, full meeting of discussion. Anyone want to share highlights, anything that came up for you that you're really excited about? Yes, David.
We didn't get a chance to put on this.
Okay.
Jack and I were just talking about making the center sort of a transportation center of sorts. What we would do, we thought about is be kind of fun to put maybe a small pool somewhere out there. Give us another place for people to swim. But also it could be an area that could convert to like an ice skating rink at winter time.
Fun.
And then you can connect with the bike trail, the walking trail and stuff could turn maybe into a cross-country trail, which could go, down the Red Rocks and stuff like that.
Sweet.
And then a lot of bike racks all over the place just to.
Excellent. All right. Any other highlights? Yeah, Jason.
Year-round farmers market and local producer space, like the markets that they have in Montreal, where you got a roof over the whole thing. And
Daniel Hall.
Yeah, and it's not just summer. It's like Marché Jean Talon in Montreal.
Yes, Ruby.
Movable modular units on the inside, so walls are movable.
Really,
very cool. Floor is gym floor, so good for classes and dancing and meetings.
Lovely.
Kitchen.
Yes. Yeah, Ingrid.
Wait. This is for the one that said space.
Yeah.
I wrote zoo because I've never seen a zoo in Vermont.
Okay, we'll put it on the list.
Natural, local animals like raccoons.
Yeah. It's large, actually.
I would actually add to this, like, because 4-H is huge across the whole country. Like, it is like that sort of like bringing animals to different life is really cool.
Thank you, David.
I mean, it kind of like the whole organizing concept kind of reminds me of like the little building at the edge of the Vermont State Campground where they have like classes and, I don't know if there's a kitchen in there, but there's a big space for teaching classes and
I like it.
Jacob, did you?
Grand Isle and a bunch of them.
It's great. We have some specifics for the NPA room itself, definitely having Zoom capabilities, good acoustics, separate from that, a kitchen. I think you mentioned that over there. Always having bike parking. Also mentioned the flexible space, moving walls. A place for kids to not be on the streets after dark was a good one. What else we had? A free stuff store / library. kitchen rental space, maybe a way to fund it in the long term. The immovable ping pong tables or chess tables outside. Somewhere to have indoor movies, classes, ADA accessibility. I think it has to be built into everything, but sometimes that can be built in a way that's kind of not very nice
Not
to
real.
those who actually have
Yeah.
to get into a space and go anyway. Gardens, proper signage to let people actually know it's there. Cause I feel like if you go to like the Miller Center, like you kind of go up and you go, what is this building? And you don't really know.
That doesn't make you feel welcome.
Yeah, that was actually our next one. It was designed to make you feel like it's your space. And indoor, outdoor feeling, like garage style doors that go up and down. And not selling the naming rights to the building.
Love that.
That was not my idea. I forget.
We can keep going for a little while, but for now, I'm just gonna say thank you, Sally, for hanging on online. And we can end the video here. And then we can talk amongst ourselves. I know the sign up sheet has been going around. If you want to continue being a part of this, we really want you to continue being a part of this. We'll be sending lots of follow up. Here's how we're going to move forward. And here's how you move forward if you don't want to be in the meetings. And among other things, asking each and every one of you to send our input survey that we're going to put together and send out to all of your friends and neighbors. The more people we can get on our input form, the easier it will be to go to all of these relevant partners and say, we got 150 people from Ward 5 to
500.
we got 500 people. We got 1,000 people. Yeah.
We're talking about each area, but Ward 5, we could.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's knock on every door in Ward 5. So fun.
Recruiting neighbors. I mean, it's been so awesome having a contingent at each of these meetings from Decker. And it would be super cool if like 50 people from Decker all weighed in on what this ought to look like.
Well, we've got a lot of people that are starting to really speak out because there was starting with COVID, there's a lot of loneliness. And then after that, a lot of this other stuff. One of the things we wanted to talk about too was maybe when we set up a center like this, make everybody feel inclusive.
Absolutely.
There's a big division between, we find that we've got a lot of people living in our stairwells and stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people are smart. They just don't have places to go. We can offer, talk a computer center where people that don't have internet and stuff can learn and stuff like that. Maybe a bank of showers and bathrooms where people instead of hiding out in the places go and stuff like that. Just something to say, hey, Burlington, I mean, this mess we're in is not just one person's fault. It's everybody's. It's going to end, but it's going to take a long time to fix it.
Yeah, go ahead.
If it were a digital survey, then it could also have the QR codes on all our NPA signs.
That's a good idea.
Like a really good idea. Word of mouth, then it's also visible.
Great idea. We can work on that. Cool.
And then just, for logistics, just the idea. So the last question that's on here is like a reminder, like who wants to kind of get in the weeds on this a little bit? Because the goal, again, is to kind of, we've got all these papers now to look through and kind of read through all of these ideas and start to kind of concrete. So there is like some work to do. It's not like a whole bunch of work. It doesn't need to be a professional city planning endeavor. But the more work that we do in this, the more that we think about this and the more that we brainstorm about how this can actually materialize, I think the better chance that we have of being taken seriously and having our ideas actually integrated.
Do you think we could turn this brainstorming, this kind of thing into an event? Do you think we can turn it into something to get people excited about? We got this.
I think so. That's hopefully what this was. And then if you sign up, if you raise your hand to get involved, we'll probably have realistically at least 2 meetings over the next month where we actually come together again and like we sit down, we'll have some tasks, we'll do some work together to really put together a proposal. And then I would like to hopefully continue to build excitement about this, reaching out to different neighbors and have even more people come to the June NPA to look at what we come up with. I think as a steering committee member, I think our schedule is pretty full on June, but I think we can dedicate at least a couple minutes to walk through the proposal and kind of like get a show of community support that we stand behind this. So that's kind of the goal. That's the last thing, if anybody wants to join us and put in a little bit of legwork to get this where it needs to be going into the summer. Please, either you've written your name down or you will write your name down on the way out, and we'll email you and we'll take the next steps. So thank you.
Good job. Have you looked at their schedule to see when and if they're having some kind of meeting? That maybe we would want to join?
That will be something that's like working group will stay on top of. There's no announced meetings yet, but it's the process happening throughout the summers. They're planning when those meetings will be, but they're not finalized yet. But yes.
Well, if folks are leaving, will you take some leftovers?
I'll let you go because.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Jason, I'm going to turn it.
Please feel free to take food. Also, there's some containers and some